The B-52 Stratofortress has officially joined the fight in Operation Epic Fury, dropping massive payloads on Iranian ballistic missile sites and command posts as the US hammers away at Tehran's ability to launch all those attacks across the region that we're seeing right now. CENTCOM has confirmed that this beast is now in the mix. B-2s, B-1s, and B-52s pushing the strikes to over 2,000 targets in just the first 72 hours. This is American air power at its finest, degrading Iran's missile program, hopefully before they can launch any more of these things at their Gulf partners and before they can build to an ability to have these missiles actually have the strike distance to hit the United States and Europe. This shows why the strategic bombers of the US are completely unmatched. So stick around because we're diving deep into the full role of the B-52, specifically the B-52, the full operational breakdown, and we'll do a realistic escalation scenario at the very end on how this could turn into something even bigger. At this point, this B-52 is dropping more heat and anger than a bad Tinder date. And here's some breaking news on what's going on right now. President Trump is securing maritime trade in the Straits of Hormuz. He said effective immediately, he's ordered the United States Development Finance Corporation to provide at a very reasonable price political risk insurance and guarantees for the financial security of all maritime trade. The United States will ensure the free flow of energy to the world. And he continued saying this will be available to all shipping lines. If necessary, the United States Navy will be escorting tankers through the Straits of Hormuz as soon as possible. No matter what, the United States will ensure the free flow of energy to the world. And then this video came in from The Guardian. It's an opinion piece that says the US and Israel gravely underestimated Iran's responses here in the UAE, and we are seeing the consequences. Well, the one thing that I would say to you is it's either now or later. And now is going to be a lot easier on the region than later. Because if Iran has 5,000 ballistic missiles, now that's a real problem. That's going to make this even harder on the UAE. So I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand, that Iran's ballistic missile capability was around 2,000 or so when this first kicked off. And then as we've seen, their ability to fire these is significantly slowing down, with about 600 being launched in the first 48 hours, and then that just trickling down. So I get it. Yeah, no one wants the UAE or any other Gulf partner hit with any Iranian Shahed drones or ballistic missiles. But if you let them get 5,000, how's this going to be in 5 years for the UAE? I mean, at some point, they're going to hold a revolver to the head even more so than they were before. So a lot of these opinion pieces are coming out. I get it. War is terrible, but at the end of the day, it's either now or later, and now is going to be much easier on the entire world. And then this is breaking news as well. In a historic first, long-range precision strike missiles, PRSMs, PRISMs, for you acronym lovers, were used in combat during Operation Epic Fury, providing an unrivaled deep strike capability. You can see the missile going up kind of in between the goalposts of the other PRISMs. Incredibly capable missile. Really great to see the absolute best technology in action right now to put even more heat on the Islamic regime in Iran. And let's pop to X and see exactly what Admiral Cooper said specifically about the bombers and the B-52. We're going to listen to Admiral Cooper. He is the US CENTCOM commander, and he's talking about the different strikes that are going on right now, specifically a lot of strikes happening from these bombers. Let's have a listen.
Now we're less than 100 hours into this operation, and we've already struck nearly 2,000 targets with more than 2,000 munitions. We have severely degraded Iran's air defenses and destroyed hundreds of Iran's ballistic missiles, launchers, and drones. And in simple terms, we're focused on shooting all the things that can shoot at us. Our B-2 bombers and B-1 bombers have executed uncontested surgical strikes against multiple missile facilities deep inside Iran. And then just last night, a B-52 bomber force struck ballistic missile and command and control posts. So striking ballistic missile and command and control posts with the B-52, that is a heavy hitter. I mean, 70 JDAMs can be carried in the B-52. However, at this point, even though air superiority is established, you could have a one-off surface-to-air missile system that lights up and could fire at a B-52. So likely a lot of these B-52 strikes are happening from JASSMs,
joint air-to-surface standoff missiles. They can get those things up and airborne and just launch a volley of those things from a standoff distance that still keeps them safe. Now the B-2s, those have impunity. Those can go in and be right over top of the target, launch whatever they want, drop whatever JDAMs they want, and Iran's surface-to-air missile systems can't do anything about it. Even if one of these just turned on, popped on, hasn't quite been taken down yet, it will be soon. As soon as that thing turns on, it's a big, hey, shoot me signal. But however, that B-52 is likely just lighting up Iran with JASSMs as we speak right now. And then check this out. This is pretty wild. This was just released 26 minutes ago. I'm going to do a full video on this, but this is the Iranian Navy's Soleimani class, basically their crown jewel of their Navy. They've got a lot of these things, and this is primarily what they're using to harass the Straits of Hormuz right now. And what they're doing is trying to close the Straits of Hormuz to enact chaos on the entire world. However, the US has a little something to say about that. So striking this down is just a canary in the coal mine of what we're going to see moving forward, with hitting all their different fast attack craft, making sure that they literally have zero ability to threaten any commercial shipping in the Straits of Hormuz. But again, I'll do a full video on that. So the B-52 Stratofortress making its combat debut right next to that beautiful B-2 Spirit and the supersonic B-1 Lancer. But these bombers are very different. So the B-2 is a stand-in bomber. That means it can go right over the target and do whatever it wants. B-1, B-52, not stealthy, so those have to be very careful and typically rely on standoff weapons. But the primary targets for these strikes are Iranian ballistic missile sites, infrastructure, plus command and control posts that are coordinating these different missile attacks throughout the Middle East. We're talking production and storage sites tied to their offensive missile capabilities, key nodes getting saturated to disrupt everything from launch coordination to sustainment. And that's why we're seeing the amount of missiles that Iran's able to launch drastically plummeting every single day. And this lines up perfectly with the big US goal: degrade and destroy Iran's ballistic missile program, including the launchers, production facilities, and those hardened underground spots. That way, they can't hit back. The B-52 brings its massive payload, up to 70,000 pounds of precision-guided munition like JDAMs, cruise missiles, to bring force on the larger area, high-volume targets that really need a lot of attention. The needy targets that need a B-52. When an F-35 won't do the job, we're going to bring in the B-52 that can launch JASSMs, joint air-to-surface standoff missiles, and 70 JDAMs once air superiority is 100% certain. B-2 goes in first, clears all the initial defenses, but the enemy has a vote, right? So Iran's ballistic missile program has been their big stick for years, and we're seeing that as what they think is going to save the regime still at this point. Thousands of missiles capable of reaching across the Middle East, as we've seen a lot of them get shut down, but just today they launched one into Turkish airspace. Now, was that an intentional launch? Probably, but also they do not have a lot of accuracy with these missiles. They do what's called a spray and pray, if you know what I mean. It's a type of launch that has pre-programmed coordinates and they just blast it off, hoping to cause chaos throughout the entire region and cause pain throughout the entire region. But their integrated air defense system is nowhere near as advanced as Western nations. And as we've seen, Chinese surface-to-air missiles and radars, Russian surface-to-air missiles and radars being completely decimated by these B-52s and other bombers. Iran's been launching salvos at US allies and bases in retaliation, but CENTCOM and the commander of CENTCOM says these strikes are already diminishing their ability to coordinate and strike back effectively. Their command posts are the glue in Iran that hold the missile launchers together, and the production sites are trying to keep the pipeline flowing for more threats. That's their ultimate goal: disguise where they're making these things, get more of them out so they can continue to cause chaos in the region. But what's Iran's biggest weakness? Well, once their air defenses have been suppressed, which happened pretty much hour one, with F-22s creating silent corridors, F-35s rolling in, and now F-15Es rolling in and just cleaning off their jets on all these different surface-to-air missile sites. Now it's all about command and control nodes, C2 for you acronym lovers. Coordination on Iran's part is likely falling falling apart by the minute. Their launchers get isolated once one of those command nodes are taken down. Their reloads are incredibly slow, with their production facilities being hit as well. And now their rebuild times are basically non-existent. Their strengths are sheer numbers though, and they've got some hardened underground facilities which were hit early on. Precision and volume overwhelmed a lot of those underground sites. President Trump and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth have been very clear about the objectives, as well as Admiral Cooper. It's all about grinding their missile industry into the ground. So at this point, it's clear that the B-52 and the other bombers are basically bending over Iran's ballistic missile production. But the numbers and facts here are straight up jaw-dropping, one of the largest operations in all of history. This marks the B-52 Stratofortress's combat debut in Operation Epic Fury, and it's already bringing that massive payload capability to the table like nobody else can. US forces combined with Israeli forces, 2,000 targets struck in the first 72 hours. The primary focus for the B-52s has been the ballistic missile sites, production and storage facilities, and those critical command and control posts that keep Iran's missiles attacks coordinated across the region, which is drastically dropping off. What's really wild here is how this represents a clear shift towards even greater volume and persistence in the campaign, ramping up the campaign on Iran as the Islamic regime can't keep up and their actual combat capability goes down. And the Islamic regime at this point kind of reminds me of that old meme. This is fine, everything is fine, but the room's basically on fire, and the room in this case is their ballistic missile program. But this is where American tech dominance shines. The B-52 Stratofortress, approaching 100 years old, it's going to keep flying even well past that, but it leverages huge payloads for saturation bombing of dispersed or semi-hardened sites. Think JDAMs raining down to cover wide areas once stealth clears the path. So once it's 100% confirmed that there's no more surface-to-air missiles, you can go right over Iran and drop carpet bomb style on all the different C2, command and control, any other of the facilities of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. So the B-2 would handle the deep strikes, maybe even the B-1 handling some of the deep strikes since it is supersonic, and then hardened underground facilities are being struck by pretty much all of the bombers at this point, with the B-52 focus on standoff. That's JASM, Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff Missiles. Those are stealthy cruise missiles that can fly in from hundreds of miles out and strike the different targets that need to be hit. Stealth suppression and then follow on heavy bombardment to disrupt command and sustainment. That's the number one goal at this point. Allies, especially Israel, are hitting northern targets while the US seems to be focusing more on the south and central, coordinated to maximize degradation of missiles, Iran's navies, and especially their proxies. Israel's hitting proxies extremely hard right now and basically telling them, hey, it's over, dudes. The head of the snake has been cut off. But the B-52 standoff weapons are the key players here. AGM-158 JASM and then JASM-ER, which ups the game. These are cruise missiles with a max load of up to 20 on one B-52. Also, you can have them externally as well. So internal and external. 12 potentially on external pylons, 8 internally, and that's thanks to a huge internal weapons bay upgrade that recently happened on the B-52. Then there's the AGM-86 Alcom or Calcom. Those are cruise missiles, also up to 20 of those in a similar configuration, and they're used to satisfy targets exactly like what Iran has. And then there's the AGM-154 JSOW, Joint Standoff Weapon glide bombs for standoff precision. AGM-84 Harpoon anti-ship missiles, those could be carried by the B-52 as well, and even AGM-160 MALD decoys to jam and distract, and they're carried just like the JASM. This gives the B-52 serious reach without getting close. And then on the JDAM side, the Joint Direct Attack munitions, these turn dumb bombs into smart ones, and they include GBU-31s. That's mainly the focus of the B-52. But release-wise, the B-52 can salvo those in one pass or do a couple different rotations pointed towards different areas and then release them on different axes going into different parts of Iran. Now let's move to the 4D chess strategic analysis section. So right now, this is shock and awe on a whole new level, with these bombers now unleashing everything they've got on Iran. Strike hard and decisively to break the enemy's will before they can regroup, and then allow the free people of Iran to step in and take over their government. Hit leadership nodes early, suppress defenses, then dismantle the missile architecture to prevent retaliation waves. And this aligns with the Trump administration's strategy, and that is is no half measures, stay until the job is done. Likely outcomes here, Iran's ability to project power regionally is going to get completely gutted, even more than it already is after 2,000 sites have been struck. Proxies are going to lose their support. And the bigger picture here is this is preparing the battlefield for what comes next. What comes next, we don't know exactly, but the whole goal is not to have an elongated war. But myself, having studied Iran for years, being in the plans department in different fighter squadrons, basically making sure that the F-15E squadron I was in was ready for a situation like this. And there's different phases of this campaign. Right now, we're still in the shock and awe. Take out anything that could potentially shoot back at us, create decisive air superiority where you own everything from the seabed to space, like Admiral Cooper said. At that point, then you can basically do whatever you want with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Who knows what's going to happen to those guys? They are so radicalized that you might not be able to bring any of them into the next administration that ends up taking over Iran and helps the free people of Iran actually have a safe country. Striking strategic targets. At this point, C2, missile sites, they're all a part of this massive operation of Operation Epic Fury that's literally in its opening wave. We're within the first 100 hours or so of this campaign. American bombers, precision and resolve are dominating just like they were built to do. So I'll keep you posted as this develops. What do you think we see the B-1, B-2, and B-52 do from here? Let me know in the comments below. Follow me on X, follow me on Instagram. I'm posting there pretty much every day. If you want to see me do a live pretty much every day at this point, go ahead and click the link in the description. Join the Max Ready Room. I do priority responses to channel members there, and then watch this next video that pops up right here. It's pretty much the best compliment you can give me. I'll see you on this next video. This is Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner, signing off.